In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. Remember, the rule of adding fractions and subtracting fractions is that your denominators have to stay the same throughout the problem. So there's another step that you have to do first if your denominators are not the same when you begin. The first thing I always do is if my problem is written horizontally like this, I like to write it out vertically. Next thing I have to do is I have to find a common denominator. And to find a common denominator, I have to think of my lowest common multiples. So I'm going to write out my multiples of 5 and my multiples of 6. There's some multiples of 5. And some multiples of 6. And by looking at these two lists, I can see that 30 is my lowest or my least common multiple between 5 and 6. So 30 is the number that I'm going to use for my new fractions so that I can have a common denominator. Okay? Next, I'm going to find my equivalent fractions, and I'll start with 4 6 here. So the first thing I do is, well, what did I do to 6? What did I multiply 6 by to get 30? Well, I multiplied it by 5. So I'm going to do the exact same thing to my numerator as I do to my denominator. So 4 times 5 equals 20. So 20 thirtieths and 4 6 are equivalent fractions. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. 5 times 6 equals 30, so 2 times 6 equals 12. So 12 thirtieths and 2 fifths are equivalent fractions. Now looking at my new fractions here, I can subtract these. Okay, I'm subtracting 20 thirtieths minus 12 thirtieths, and my denominator stays the same. I'm just going to write it over here. My denominator has to stay the same throughout the problem, so I'm just going to do 20 minus 12, which is 8. And I know that 2 goes into both of those, so I'm going to simplify my fraction real quick. 8 divided by 2 equals 4, and 30 divided by 2 equals 15. So after I have simplified it, I get 4/15 as my answer. Now at this time you can pause the video and try the next two problems out on your own, or you can continue to follow along with me as I do them and work them out on the board. Next one, I have 1/2 minus 3/8. Okay? And I need to come up with some new fractions that have common denominators because 2 and 8 are not the same number. So I'm going to write down my least common multiples of both of these numbers here, and I think I can tell what. Yep, sure enough, 8 is my least common multiple between 2 and 8. So 8 is going to be my new denominator that I'm working with here. And because this is an 8 and this is an 8, and I'm making equivalent fractions, I know that my numerator is going to be the same over here. And to find an equivalent fraction for 1/2, 2 times 4 equals 8. So 1 times 4 is 4. So 4/8 and 1/2 are equivalent fractions. And now I can do my problem, which is 4/8 minus 3/8. Well, I know my numerator is going to, my denominator is going to be the 8 because the denominator stays the same throughout the problem. And 4 minus 3 equals 1. So 1/2 minus 3/8 is 1/8. Okay, we have one more problem to do. We have 4/5 plus 2/8. Okay, so the first thing I need to do, since my denominators are not the same, is I need to find a least common multiple between 5 and 8. And actually, I'm just going to continue writing them out. Since I already have my multiples of 5 over here, I'm just going to write out my multiples of 8 over here. no point in doing twice the work. And I can see that 40 is going to be my common denominator. Okay, so 40 is my denominator. I'm going to write that in. Okay, and I know that 8 times 5 equals 40. So whatever I do to my denominator, I'm going to do to my numerator. And 2 times 5 is 10. And since 8 times 5 equals 40, I guess 5 times 8 is also 40. Whatever I do to the bottom, I'm going to do to the top. 4 times 8 equals 32. Okay? And now I can go ahead and I can add my problem up here. I have 32 plus 10 equals 42 over 40. And when we have a bigger number on top than we do on bottom, that means we have a mixed number or an improper fraction. So to figure out what this is going to be, I'm going to divide my denominator into my numerator. 40 goes into 42 one whole time with 2 remaining over 40, which equals 1 and 1/20th, because I know that 2 goes into both 2 and 40. If I divide both of those by 2, my new reduced fraction, when simplified, is 1/20th. So it's going to be 1 and 1/20th is equal to 4/5 plus 2/8. And that's adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators.